We are now officially underway. Welcome to the St. George Secondary School for St. George Speaks. This is a continuation of 2 days of interaction with the people of St. George, Prime Minister, your MPs, and a number of government officials spent most of yesterday until last night in the constituency interacting with so many of you, and we will do the same again tonight. Now, this is the third in a series of meetings that are going constituency-wide, and so far we have done St. Joseph, and we have done St. John. Now we are in St. George. Next we go to St. Philip. So far we've had very robust discussions, but the discussions have always been respectful. I would expect nothing less from you tonight as good Barbadians, good St. George people. Do not feel as though we are trying to stop you from speaking. Feel free to speak what's on your mind, raise your questions, make your comments. All we ask is that you do so respectfully and that you give anyone else who speaks a fair and reasonable chance to respond to you. Now, because we are starting late, we are going to dispense with the introductions and go straight into allowing you to make your comments. But it is interesting that as I was waiting this afternoon to get going, I looked up and I saw this sign behind me, which says, "Listen and silent are spelt with the same letters." I'm sure that means something to the children of St. George Secondary. Let it mean something to all of us tonight. Let's listen and let's leave here with something that is of value. So, the microphone is immediately ahead of me. Feel free to walk to the mic, deliver your points as briefly as possible so everybody gets a chance. And depending on the nature of the matter you raise, we will either respond immediately or we will take a number of them together and then respond. So the floor is now open.
Good evening. The Honourable Amor Mottley, our Prime Minister. I am so grateful to meet with you in person. And the question I would... Oh, yes. My name is Shirley Woodruff, and I live at Lot 2, Lower Estate, St. George. And I have the Attorney General here who was my lawyer but cannot be my lawyer because he's the Attorney General. And I'm sorry about that because he's an excellent lawyer. Yes, the question I have for the Prime Minister. You have met with CARICOM and you have with Guyana, Suriname, all these prime ministers and dignitaries. And they have said what they're bringing to the plate. What I would like to know is what we are bringing to the plate with these countries. I haven't heard that address from you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am, Ms. Woodruff, and thank you for your kind comments. I'm sure that the Attorney General is happy to see you again, even if after such a long time.
Yes.
You're absolutely correct to ask what is in it and how we are doing it. In Guyana, for example, we have on the table, with respect to agriculture, put on the table our ability to use the Bajan black-belly sheep because we can only expand the numbers here so much. But we are working with Guyana and probably with the state of Roraima in Brazil to see how we can, one, expand the numbers of them in terms of pure breed, but also do a crossbreed with other sheep so that we have two different types of lamb available. Barbados, because of our lack of space as compared to Guyana and Suriname and lack of fresh water, have decided to go into more agro-processing and what they call logistics, so that we will take the stuff from there. The jobs will be created. We'll import the carcasses, not just lamb, but other meats, and they'll come up split in 4, and then we will train our people to do the specialty cuts, because when you go into the supermarket or if you go into hotels, you're going to get chops of a certain type. You're going to get different parts that have to be did. Some people pay a lot more money for filet mignon than they pay for chuck beef. So we will specialize in that in terms of the meats. We've also agreed, and in fact the Guyanese technical team is on the ground here now, that we're going to start a program of aquaculture. And we are looking this evening, they visited Brown's Pond in St. Philip. The government put down the pond, is the Minister of Agriculture, I think it's about 12 million gallons. Or 10 million gallons at Brown's Pond. But remember, that's for the farmers at River who all through the year would not have had water. We put in the water catchment area for them. But rather than leaving the water just there, we've said no, use the water to be able to be an income stream as well, so that we can now develop and raise shrimp, not just for our local industry, but eventually for export. And we're also looking at other fish, tilapia and catfish, also to use in the aquaculture. The other things that we're doing, the Guyanese soil doesn't have a lot of lime, and they need lime and they need other things down there. The limestone Barbados has, we are exporting the limestone to Guyana, and on occasion we've done it to Suriname. There were some issues as to whether we had enough magnesium in our soil, and we've agreed, and the Guyanese have agreed, that they will add the magnesium to the limestone from Barbados. Most Bajans may not know, but the sand that we've been quarrying for years is coming to a limited, to an end. In some areas, there is a possibility of something else, but that has its own other difficulties. So we've had to identify potential sources of sand, and both Guyana and Suriname have it for us. So it is very much a cooperative arrangement. In the logistics aspect of it, we're looking to be able to import the food stuff here and then use Barbados as a distribution point. So we don't only distribute for Bajans, but then we look at distributing to the other islands across here and even further afield outside of the Caribbean, a number of the products that we have. So Barbados is likely to benefit, in short, from what they call logistics, the trade and transport side of it. 2, the value added in agro-processing, or in the case of the beef and specialty cuts. And then in the expertise being transferred to us, because we're not in the business or history. Historically, Bajans don't do a lot of aquaculture. There are also other things we're working with Guyana on, and I'll announce that as we go forward, because it will benefit the entire country. And similarly with Suriname. But I'll start and leave it at that for now, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Woodruff.
Thank you.
Good night to everyone, dear Honorable. Pardon? Andrew Roberts. My name is Andrew Roberts. Right. Now, I'm not really going to relate to anything concerning the constituencies right now, but I really would like to bring up the point that being one who would have graduated from the university for a while now, since actually 2013, I have not been really given the opportunity to find employment. And it has been a long time. Even if I had furthered my education, for some reason, all of the applications that I have been sending seems to be of no effect. And I'm actually realizing is that even when you decide to go out of the area that you might would have studied, it seems that you're going to be either too qualified or I should say overqualified, or maybe according to these persons who are given the jobs, not qualified enough, right? So I'm just bringing up the fact that I'm not only speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking on behalf of others in the same situation as myself. And I'm going to speak specifically on the areas of maybe teaching and social work. There have always been that cry for more male teachers, more male social workers. And I have come to see that the but the helping professions, these areas seem to be more dominated by females. I have no problem with females. What I'm saying is that I really believe it would make a difference, especially when you see what is going on even within the country. I could even speak from my past, right? I mean, I am one who was actually sent out of school, but I was able, thanks to the help of God, I shall say, to turn my life completely around and continue my education, right? I don't have to get into all of that, but what I'm trying to say is that I really believed, right, that when you put more male teachers, that's just my phone ringing, sorry about that, right? When you put more males in this kind of profession, right, I believe it could make a difference in stopping a lot of these young men from making the wrong decisions in life. That I made a lot of wrong decisions as a teenager, and as I said, it caused me to be sent out of my school. But thanks to God and what He did for me, I was able to turn my life completely around, and I know I can make a difference as a social worker, right? And I also know I can make a difference even if it was put in the area of teaching, right? But again, for all this period of time, applying, it seems to be of no effect. So I'm just trying to ask if there's anything that could be done in this area and helping more males to be put in the area of this helping profession so that we can make a difference in society. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the Chief Education Officer, Ms. Archer, to speak to you directly on the question of the presence of males in the teaching system. Go ahead.
Testing. Good evening, everybody. I want to firstly congratulate that young man for standing and sharing his position as he did just now. I agree with you, young man, when it comes to applications. In the Ministry of Education, we have a lot more females applying for the position of teaching than males. It is something, of course, that we have to take a look at. I know that the minister has already assessed that situation, and further discussion will take place with regard to how we can have more males within the education system. Maybe we can consider affirmative action when it comes to males, having a ratio of males to females within the primary school, within the secondary school. One of the things I would also ask you to do, you said that you have your degree in a particular area. I'm going to ask that you also try to upskill yourself by pursuing courses at Erdiston Teachers Training College, because that will make it more attractive, make your application more attractive as well. But for sure, what we will do, I want to ask you, have you received a response from the Ministry of Education with regard to your application?
Okay. When I graduated from the university in 2013, my first move was to apply, sign up the form for teaching. That was 2013. At that point in time, I decided, well, I will go on and I will get at the open campus. I further my education doing what is considered a certificate in guidance and counseling.
Right.
But I guess my main aim was really mainly social work. I would have preferred to have that area, but if I couldn't, I would then still prefer to do the role of a teacher where I know I can make a difference in these young men's and these young children's lives because of my own past, right? So what I'm trying to say is that the opportunity has not arrived. From the time I would have signed up that form, what went wrong is that after a couple of years, the information went missing. And they had to do it all over again. And they had to update it.
At the Ministry of Education?
At the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
And my name was also at what is known as the Personnel Administration Division. And it has been there from the time I came out of the university. I must say, I did get the opportunity to be interviewed as a school social worker, right? But I'm still stressing on the fact that I know there's a lot that I can do, right? But the opportunities are just not coming to me, and I just don't understand why. Okay. I mean, I have a great testimony, but again, I can't get into all of that because it will take the whole night. Right?
All right.
So I was just explaining that.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask you, young man, to send me an email, cno@mes.gov.bb.
CNO.
CEDO@mes.gov.bb.
Yes.
Okay, and we will follow up.
Okay.
Yeah, I will write it for you.
Okay.
Or someone will write it for you. Yes?
All right, thank you very much.
Madam President, representatives for St. George North and South, and Attorney General and former schoolmate, I just want to ask one short question, but before I get into that question, I want to give a little information that I'm sure all the head table will be aware of. My name is Alan Haynes. I'm founder of the online group called Kidney Caribbean and now president of the Barbados Kidney Association. President of the Barbados Kidney Association and a founder of an online group called Kidney Caribbean. You hear? Yeah. I have one short question to ask either the Attorney General or the Prime Minister, but before I get into that, I just want to share a little information that might be privy to the head table, but not some of the other members. I'm also a dialysis patient. In Barbados, we have about 400 persons on dialysis. And that costs the government something like $18 million to finance that service on an annual basis. There are about 1,000 persons who attend outpatient clinic with problems related to kidney disease. It is also estimated that there are approximately 20 to 30,000 people in Barbados at stage 1 to 4 of kidney disease. There are normally 5 stages. People like me, we are at stage 5, which is end stage. And it is estimated that if 10% of those move the next 5 years, move from stage 1 to 4 to stage 5, that will cost the government an additional $100 to $150 million. This is a serious situation. Now, dialysis is one of the treatments for end-stage kidney disease or stage 5. The other one is transplantation. And I've heard recently many people have told the Prime Minister and the Minister of Health that there are significant savings, economic, financial savings, in moving people from that stage, moving people from dialysis to transplantation. Now, I have sat down as an accountant and worked out that along, and I've taken the figures to people like Dr. Oshie and those. I can give the Prime Minister a figure. Over a 5-year period, that will result of savings of $193,000, okay, by moving a person from dialysis to transplant over a 5-year period. Multiply that by 400 or whatever, and you can see the savings. No, million.
You mean, right, you mean 193,000 per patient
Per patient
Right.
for a 5-year
Right,
period.
$193,000 per patient
Yeah,
over a 5-year
for
period.
a 5-year
Yeah.
period. Yes. Okay. So that will result in significant savings for those who want to multiply. Now, in Barbados, we have started transplantations from live donors. We have done approximately 11 transplants between 2015 and today from live donors. We also have the possibility of doing it from deceased persons. We do not have the legislation. I've been hearing about the legislation for a number of years now. And my question is this legislation going to be passed this year? That's my question. And depending on the answer, I just have a short comment to make.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haynes, and thank you for raising this most critical of issues. Only, about a month ago I met with Dr. Scantlebury, and most Barbadians will not know that she was the first black person to undertake kidney transplant surgery in the United States of America, and she's a Bajan. So we met with her towards her helping us with the transplant program at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The Ministry of Health, and these issues go and start first with the Ethics Committee, and then they come through policy to Cabinet, and then Cabinet sends the policy to the Chief Parliamentary Council for them to draft. We are awaiting, and we're told that Cabinet should shortly receive the policy paper for the drafting instructions for the Chief Parliamentary Council. The AG will tell you that his staff are under a lot of pressure, but I have also indicated that this is a priority area for us. I can't tell you that it will be ready by the end of the year, but I can tell you that this is a priority area for the government. I've given those instructions when Minister Goodinegel and myself met with Dr. O'Shea, Dr. Scantlebury, and the CEO of the hospital. So I look forward to that. Let me also tell you that because I realized the same thing that you did in terms of the explosion of the number of cases, we therefore felt that we needed to do two things. One, Bajans got to start taking responsibility for their body. And the reality is that a lot of the people who have kidney disease in Barbados get it as a result of diabetes that is uncontrollable. Diabetes is at epidemic proportions in this country. We talk about the pandemic as we should, but the next thing that I am not easing any of you on is the question of chronic NCDs. Fancy word for basically diabetes, hypertension, a heart condition. And as a result, separate from what we have in terms of the community treatment at the polyclinics, I have insisted, and we put a program in place, and the QEH has started it, that we have and work towards 40 nursing assistants that the QEH would put in the community. They've put, I think, 36 already. I'm not sure if anybody from health is here, but they've put about 36 already. And basically, those nursing assistants are to go to the 2,000 most vulnerable patients and to be able, I'm told that they can do about 10 a day. So that, 5 a day. So that over a 10-day period, they do 50, which means each nurse, 50 times 40, is how you get to the 2,000. But the important thing is that nursing assistant should be going to the patient, one patient, at least once every 2 weeks. And they're then going to look at what they're eating, look and see the medication. A lot of people take medication from the pharmacy and don't use it. Yes. You know that? And got it piled up there. And next thing when you look at it, the medication expired. A lot of people say, oh, I was eating good all day, but I just feel for that little thing. I just had a little thing there on the side. Everything that you put in your mouth counts. I know, because I fight that battle too. not with diabetes, but with weight. So that the bottom line is that we need to get serious. And I've been speaking to the senior minister, Walcott, who has responsibility for the social sector, and Minister Goodinedgel, and some other staff, about the fact, and Dr. Ford, about us putting a program in place and getting the machines so that people can take the test. I can't remember the name of the fancy test, but it is a test that will allow the doctor to know whether your blood sugar had spiked over the 3-month period before. Now, if we can get as many of them out there in the polyclinics as possible and in doctors' offices as possible, and I've said to them, I want a program run on GIS and public affairs, telling people, go and get your situation checked and see what it was like over the last 3 months. Because the blood test don't lie. It don't lie. And if you then, therefore, are serious about your health, you immediately know that you have to modify your behavior. You got to start doing some exercise, etc. Now, I'm not saying that that's the only reason for kidney disease, but we know that the explosion in Barbados is largely as a response to us not taking sugar diabetes seriously. This year, the government put and doubled the tax on sweet drinks. I make no apology for it. Left up to me, I would double it again. I'm serious. Because when you look and see, I want all of you to go in and to make appointments to go to the Barbados Diabetes Association, the Maria Holder building there in my constituency. They have a chart in the nutrition's office. And for every bottle, they got a Ziploc bag with the amount of white sugar in it that is in each drink. And when you see the amount of sugar that in the things that you drinking easy, so when the day come, it make you cry. And therefore, I thank you, Mr. Haynes, for raising this, because as I said, we're bringing the legislation. We've met with Dr. Scanterbury. We are adamant that we need to be able to do it and to ensure that Bajans can get kidney transplants here easily without having to go overseas or to make spend all kinds of foolish money that they may not have. But equally, while the government does that, and I'm thankful that you've raised the issue of cost, every person has to play their part. And their part is, do you really need a turnover every morning at break? Or a meat party every morning at break? No, I'm serious. Because I work in ministries and I see when the vans come and how people eat. And if the same vendor can sell you fruit instead, imagine how much better off you would be than eating the things that giving you the problems with the diabetes. So thank you. AG, I think I didn't want to misrepresent your situation, but the legislation, legislative calendar is full, but this is an issue of life and death for people, and the AG would tell you that it does so, boops, and go to the top of the list.
I just want to make a short comment there.
Certainly.
You mentioned diabetes. Between 60 to 70% of persons with kidney disease get it from hypertension and diabetes. That's across the world, and we don't have a statistic in Barbados, but we believe that it is very, very similar. I've done a little study on Trinidad, and it is about 65. Right? I also want to make a comment on, we have been trying to get a meeting with the Ministry of Health, because we believe that there are a number of points of light. As the Prime Minister mentioned, Dr. Scanterbury is one of the main points of light. There are many others across Barbados, and we want to work with the ministry to make sure that we have lots of recommendations. We have studied this problem over the years, and we have several detailed recommendations that we want to share with the Ministry of Health. And we also have some presentations done for kids at primary and secondary schools that we share with the schools. I will encourage the minister to let's get in contact with others so we can share those presentations.
I do better than that. My personal assistant is here.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask Ms. Cadogan to make an appointment, a meeting,
Yeah.
for the Barbados Kidney Association, yourself and others, with Minister Sonia Brown,
Yes.
who is the minister responsible not just for the QEH day-to-day, but for chronic NCDs.
Yeah, we
So
had a
that
meeting- we had a meeting here on
she needs
Tuesday.
to be your ally and
Yeah.
partner
Thank you.
in this fight.
Thank you very much.
I thank you too for raising it, and let's work together to get the awareness up even more.
Good evening, Prime Minister, other government ministers. My name is Sonia Banfield. I come here with a concern this evening. I represent my country in netball for over 18 years straight. I happen to have some knee problems. My past boss, Mr. Sutherland, has set me up at the hospital to see if I could get some help. Every time I go there, the first time I went there, I sat for 3 hours. Then, when I went and see the doctor, he asked me if I had x-rays, which I went and paid to get the x-rays done instead of waiting on the hospital. When he looked at them, he come back and he tell me, I have to get knee replacements. And he said to me, do you have insurance? I said, no. So I turned and he turned and said to me, tell the minister they don't have no machines to do knee replacements. And it hurt me to see that my past netballers are being hurt every time they go to get a procedure done at the hospital. And I can say I am proud to have represent my country with 3 other sisters at the same time. And I know that in my lifetime and a lifetime to come again, there will never be 4 sisters to represent the country. Madam Prime Minister, the only thing I didn't do that day was cry. Right now, I had to come out from work, medical off. I'm still a young woman, and my right knee, I can't even go as I like because it's bone rubbing on bone.
Ms. Banfield, sit down. You sit down. Trust me. Ms. Cadogan can talk to you, and we will deal with your matter personally, okay? Thank you very much. And let me say to you that only yesterday I discussed with Jerome Walcott the possibility of us working with the local doctors to get them to establish a national rehabilitation center. Many of you may have known Douglas Trotman. He was a little rough when he ready, but he was a good man. And Douglas Trotman had met with me just before he died, about 3-4 months before he died, and the government had committed to working with them and a team to establish a national rehabilitation center that would work not just for people who get in car accidents or whatever, but a lot of our athletes. You happen to be a netballer, footballers as well, cricketers, all of you that have problems and need to be able to be met. We are looking at how best we can expand the campus of the QEH so that we move it, because remember, you got the QEH one side and you got Belleville that full of the private doctors the other side. You now have the possibility of the Ursuline Convent in there, and without talking in advance, I hope that Minister McConney and Minister Sutherland can negotiate and reach some kind of reasonable settlement that will allow us to be able to use that site for a public-private partnership or maybe even a private sector investment. There's a pool, for example, already on the Ursuline Convent campus, and it is less than 2 minutes drive to Browns Beach, which is one of the best beaches in Barbados, and then you have the main hospital there. So we are in what I would call the very, very early stages of seeing how we can establish either through the private sector facilitation or in a public-private partnership, a national rehabilitation center, because ma'am, you're not the only one whose pain we feel on this issue of joints and hip replacement and knee replacement and other things to do with rehabilitation. So thank you. I know it took a lot of courage for you to share that. And you know, I'm happy that we've started these programs. But I also feel a little sad sometimes because until all of our institutions work efficiently during the day for the people that they're supposed to work for, then we are not completing our job, because people must be able to get help in this country without knowing somebody or calling a favor or begging or crying. And that's what we are working towards. I wish that we had inherited this country in a better state economically so that we could set these standards across the board. But the truth is that we're juggling all the time from one crisis and one issue to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. But thank God, God give us strength and God give us the ability to do the juggling. So it could be a lot worse. But thank you, ma'am. And once again, thank you also for doing our country proud in the representation.
The mic is going to a lady who is not going to stand or can't stand right now.
Thank you very much. I just want to apologize because I'm not feeling well enough to stand at the mic. But this comment is in direct relation to the Glebe Public Market, where I have a stall. My name is Karen Wharton, and I live right here in this neighborhood in Constant. Wharton. So this comment is in direct relation, as I mentioned earlier, about the Glebe Public Market, where I have a stall, and I've just restarted Monday this week. I have been a vendor over there since 2017, when I was first made redundant from my job. Now, I don't see anybody here representing the Ministry of Agriculture. I don't know if somebody could... Okay, well, I'm speaking directly to that person. Now, that market has been in existence since maybe 20 years ago. I don't know, I might be off a year or two. But as we speak, it is in deplorable condition. It is almost destitute, if I may say so myself. It is extremely disappointing. To me, as a vendor, for years, and I'm sure other people who are there there are only like 4 of us in there now. Everybody else has left. Okay? Every time it rains, the place floods out. You think you're at the Browns Beach. Right in front of my stall, up to this morning, I had to put down cardboard for my customers to come and patron my stall. I have to keep mopping up there. The roof is in awful condition, and I'm wondering if something is going to eventually be done about the public market in St. George at the Glebe.
Ma'am, I hear you, and that's the purpose for these meetings. So where's the person from agriculture? I have my note. That's why I used to be putting down the mic and the notes, because I follow through on all of these things.
Awesome.
Okay?
Good.
So I don't know the state of the problem, but I give you the assurance that I will have it investigated, a report sent to me, and depending on the scale of the problem, we'll start to fix it as quickly as possible. If it is more structural than we can deal with one time, I will ask your MP to get back on to you and explain to you what it is we're doing and how we will do it. Because we are in the middle of a financial year, but equally, if it is an easy fix, it will be done. It sounds to me it could be relatively easy, but we will find out. Because, as you're correct, it's been there. Reggie, you were around about 20 years in truth. Glenn did that when we were last in government. Yeah? So I'll have the report done for you, ma'am.
Thank you for that.
And you said there are only about 4 of you working there now?
Yeah, there are just about 4 people in there now, 4 vendors. Everybody else has left because of the condition of the place. I've been at this since 2017. That's when I became a vendor over there. And I've been told the same thing since then, so, you know.
No problem. Thank you for raising it.
Thank you too.
That's the purpose of these meetings,
Thank you
live and
too.
direct. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Salmon of Lower State, St. George. Okay. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to share our concerns with you, Prime Minister, and your cabinet ministers. So my question was parked from Mrs. Woodruff's initial comments. Alicia Salmon of Lower State, St. George. Yes, please. All right, so we are cognizant all in Barbados that our people are our greatest resource, and we've been seeing more and more as the economies across the world are depleting and they're having issues that services is going to be the key way for economic growth in Barbados and certainly the region. So my question really is cognizant that the sector is or can be certainly a key to economic growth. What is being done within the sector, certainly from a policy perspective and a very practical perspective, to boost the sector, and what is being done to engage grassroots persons as well as the youth so that they get more involved in services, and certainly how can we move towards not just services, but in a more modern world, how can we use the technology that we have to ensure that we are helping the youth to get employment and certainly advancing the economy.
You see me asking, I have a bad sinus infection since COVID. So my left ear is blocked up sometimes, so therefore that's why I'm asking people to speak clearly, and I'm not necessarily getting everything,
So
but trying
the essence of what I said?
Huh?
You
I got the essence of it.
Okay.
But I'm apologizing for having to ask you to repeat yourself.
No problem.
Okay?
Thank
So that's why if I sound nasal too, that's what's happening. Basically, the services sector is at the center of the Barbados economy, whether it is tourism, whether it is educational services, medical services, construction services. When Ms. Yearwood, it was at the beginning, not Yearwood, Ms. Woodruff asked me about what is in it for Barbados. Barbados doesn't have the scale of agricultural production or the scale of manufacturing that other countries will have, but we can compete on services and give people the market. A lot of our young people need the training, and in fact, we are now about to investigate a range of opportunities where training can lead to global jobs. And I think at the meeting in St. Joseph Dale, I announced that we already have a company from overseas, two companies, one from overseas looking for creatives that work, and they represent a lot of the companies globally on the metaverse, on social media, and the advertising. The second one relates to, I think, video games, and Minister Ishmael is here, and he does Playtronics, and that kind of thing. We realize that whether it is in cybersecurity or other ICT things, that we can literally provide the training platform, but give Barbadians opportunities for global jobs. So our services sector more and more is not only going to be the traditional ones like tourism and education and medical and construction and culture, but it will go beyond to some of the other services for which there's a shortage globally. So I ask us to stay tuned. The key is training and education. Once you have the training and education, then the jobs can come, especially in that digital environment, not just locally, but globally. Okay? Sorry?
Thank you for your comment, and certainly I agree that diversifying the services sector and going into new areas is certainly very important. But what I just want to say as a suggestion is that the information has to be relevant to the young people. It has to be easily disseminated, and it has to be very practical. So it has to reach the people on the ground, and not just necessarily utilizing GIS, and I know we've been trying to diversify the way in which we communicate. So it really has to reach people so that they recognize that there is something in it for them.
Wilfred Abrams is here, and he's heard you. And in fact, that's why we established public affairs to do a lot more social media communication than the traditional GIS. Perhaps, Davidson, you'd like to speak, Minister Ishmael, about some of the things that we're going after in the services sector in your ministry with IDC and Mark Hill. And in fact, they're in Cuba now looking and dealing with the biotechnology for those people who are trained in that area, because we're trying to create opportunities for the science students. But go ahead, Davidson.
Good evening. Yes, thank you, Prime Minister. It's a very good question. And as you already said and alluded to, Prime Minister, we are trying to source as many opportunities for our people as possible. We are finding that there are companies overseas that are looking for persons here in Barbados who are going to be able to provide them with online digital services. We have a lot of our young people who have training, whether it be from certification from school, university, have the opportunities here for employment. But we have companies overseas that are actually looking for skilled young people to be able to advance their particular agendas, their particular business and growth opportunities. We have a life sciences part, the Prime Minister just alluded to, in terms of the biotechnology area. We have the life sciences part that's going to be established very soon, where that too is going to attract external investors. They're going to create their opportunities and they're going to open their businesses here in Barbados, and that too will open up opportunities for our young people here in Barbados as well. As it relates to what the Prime Minister alluded to, we have firms that are actually opening new opportunities in the service industries relative to games. There are a lot of persons, as the Prime Minister said, that are already in the tourism space, that are already in the agricultural space, etc. Some of the more traditional industries, but we're looking to see how we can diversify and innovate and create new sectors and new industries, and gaming is one of those. Gaming is actually one of the industries that's growing most rapidly in the world right now, and those companies overseas are looking for persons who can not only design games, but test games. And we actually have engaged one of the largest gaming companies, and they are ready to open their doors here in Barbados and create in excess of 300 jobs for young people in particular, to be able to not only test those games, but design games as well. And they're participating with us and partnering with us to not just allow you to have a space where you can have employment, but they're going to be training persons specifically in those areas. So we're trying to diversify and create as many opportunities as we can, not only as it relates to the manufacturing side of things, the biotech space, but also on the technology side of things and the science side of opportunities that we're trying to create out there as well. So as Prime Minister said, there are things that are going to be coming. Stay tuned. You're going to hear a lot more about it. As we would have alluded to, we're going to try to ensure that the information is disseminated to as many people and reach as many people as possible using as many mediums as possible, so that young people who are leaving school, they're able to plug into the opportunities that we're creating for them and make the most of them and be able to, of course, benefit not only personally, but we as a country ultimately will benefit as well economically. Thank you.
I'll just add that from my ministry, we're doing the final due diligence on cybersecurity training opportunities, some out of Canada, one out of Canada and one out of Florida. And those will give people the opportunity, once they pan out, to be trained over a period of months and then to be linked to jobs overseas, because there is a global shortage of cybersecurity, of people with cybersecurity expertise. Okay? Mr. Leach?
Hi, good night, Madam Prime Minister and the head table. My name is Carl Leach. I'm the president of the St. George North constituency branch. On my way here and between yesterday and today, I received 3 phone calls, and I was asked to ask a question on their behalf, and it pertains to land ownership. There are several residents of St. George North, like in Torps Cottage and the Glebe land, who are currently living on church land. Over the years, several promises have been made to them that these lands they will become the owners of the land they have been occupying now, probably from since slavery. And they are in a state where they don't believe that sufficient is being done to make them landowners. It is very difficult for them to acquire loans from the bank to develop their lots. So my question to you tonight is, what can I tell these residents tomorrow if they are any closer to owning these lands?
Hi, good night. Let me greet each and every one of you who journeyed from wherever to come to St. George. And you know, when we come to these parts of St. George, we often have a very packed hall from way back in 2012, if those of you remember those days. It's always a very packed hall, and I thank you on behalf of the member for St. George North and myself for sure noting your numbers to support the call for information coming from you, the people, to assist government to assist you. So thank you again. With respect to the church lands, only a couple of weeks ago I met with the board of the trustees of the Anglican Church. Permanent secretary is here, Timothy Maynard, and myself. I think the deputy permanent secretary was in the meeting. But we met with a view to transfer some lands. I don't want to get into the history of lands in this country because most of the lands were owned by the church. But this is a pretty easy task. I mean, you can speak to the church and also you can speak to us. We have been discussing with the church to utilize lands for various aspects of development, whether it is community centers. There'll be one going up at Chalky Mount soon from now. Transfer of lands from one church to the other. And I think the glebe market here is on the Anglican lands, right here, which is west of the pasture right here. That is Anglican land that was leased to the Ministry of Small Business. So we have a way whereby we can address that matter, Mr. Leach, and I will facilitate the discussion through the permanent secretary within the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance. But it is up to the church, though. That is land that is owned by the church. And with all due respect, while we can facilitate the discussion, we will expect the persons to reach out to the board of the trustees. And if you're not getting through, then we as the Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, we can facilitate it for you. Hope that answers you. For the time being, I don't know if the PS has anything else to add there. You want to get in, Timothy?
PS speaks. I think the MP for St. George North wants to speak, and then the PS.
All right, good night to everyone as well. This issue is one that everybody knows has been going on for some time. And last year, May, from as far back as then, the church notified that it had sorted out with NHC and a number of conveyances had been settled and so on, over 90 of them. And the major challenge that they were encountering is that people who were on church land, who could actually proceed with taking ownership of the land, were not completing the Form 1 forms that would be required for the transfer to take place. I think they had indicated that of the 90 plus at the time, that only about 20 plus people had come forward to complete the forms. They then indicated that they would want the constituency's help, and we agreed that we could probably do a town hall meeting, the church and the constituency and National Housing, where we would be passing on the information, because the concern was that maybe people didn't understand that what was required is as little as what they're saying is required. In most cases, the figure that we are talking about to transfer the land is $500, but we appreciate that some people have a challenge where the person who originally was renting the land may be dead and there may be issues involving estate. My investigations indicate that that is not true for the majority of cases. So what we really need is, if individuals are not sure what the procedure is, that really National Housing, the Ministry of Housing is where you should be seeking that information. But our encouragement would be to get the land. This is ownership that can be passed on to generations, so it's something that we should want to be interested in pursuing.
Hi, good night, everyone. Actually, I can start from Timothy Maynard, PS, Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance. Good night, everybody. Actually, I can continue from where Ms. Moore has left off. We have worked for the last few years systematically through a program with the church and other landlords to try to make sure that people can actually benefit from a program of empowerment and enfranchisement. So we have surveyed a lot of parcels, hundreds of parcels over the last few years, with the intention of making sure that people can own their own lots so that they can use that collateral to build the houses and empower themselves. But you're right. What we have found is that not many people are taking up the offer of home ownership, converting the tenantry lots into home ownerships. Some people find it easier to continue to pay rent because the burdens of home ownership sometimes attaches. But it is important to realize that home ownership is important. Now, we work closely with the Codrington Trust, for example, and some of the churches to survey those lands. And then once the lands are surveyed, we will then deduct the cost of the survey plans on the conveyance. So there is an active program that is ongoing, Ms. Moore and members, to ensure that people can get the values and the benefits of home ownership through the tenantries program.
Thank you very much, P.S. Maynard. Let's get a little settled, please. And here is so that everyone can hear. The PS is absolutely correct. The government has expended, and I have personally increased the amount of money that we spend in surveying to be able to facilitate the transfer of lands, and there are lots in St. John, the ones in Welch, in St. John. Minister Griffith is here. There are ones going down by Codrington College. The ones in the glebe land here are church lands. So Joe's Riverdale is reminding me of St. Joseph, because we recognize that we may not be able to play as many shots as we would like as a government, but one shot that we can play is facilitating home ownership. What I believe may have to be done, and I'm glad that Minister Abrams is here along with Minister Sutherland, is that if people are being reluctant to take up the land, it is probably because they don't appreciate fully the virtue of home ownership. My grandfather used to say that land don't spoil. You can't pick it up and carry it nowhere. So that once you got it, it is there for life. And once the price keeps increasing, you can then borrow against your house. I am not ashamed to tell you that the first time I was in government, to stay in government and to live because of everything, I had to take and put my mortgage 14 years, and I went back and do my mortgage on my townhouse there in Boarded Hall twice. Okay? Because each time you buy it at a certain price, the value went up to another price. You go and take out some of the value out of it. The value went up again by the time you get to 10, 12 years after ownership. You go and take out another $30,000, $40,000 on it, and you have this mortgage going. But when you take the same money out your pocket, I tell you, St. Joseph, and I can tell you in every meeting if necessary, and say, here, Dwight, $500, $1,000. That receipt that got on rent, the money dead. The receipt that got on mortgage, you could go back and borrow money against the house like I borrowed Boarded Hall. Pick cents from that. Okay, so I'd like an active program of public education. And the other thing is, we and other governments in this country have worked to make home ownership possible for people. The first 175,000, 150,000, I can't remember offhand, 150,000 you do not pay land tax on. And we as a government have told you that during the course of this term, we will increase that also. Okay? Why? Because we believe that we should make ownership as easy for you. And the last thing that we have done in the silent housing revolution that we are bringing about with the different range of options, and you will soon hear Dwight and his people announce for the people they have gone through and verified of the 17,000. Mr. Gill, you're here. Come off the phone and come and talk to the microphone, please. Anybody named Cupid would only be talking love talk at 8 o'clock at night. Please explain what has happened and what you intend to do within 2 weeks or so to facilitate, please.
Well, I need to go back. Let me say good night, and good night to the lady that called me from right in here. She would understand what Cupid stands for. But in having that chat, I want to say good night to each and every one of you. We have reached a stage where we would have done a backlog at the National Housing Corporation. That backlog is up to 17,500. My understanding in a discussion this afternoon is that there may be some persons who just came in that we can add to that database, and I will add them to that database so that total may go up. But the intention is that the country is embarking on a massive program, a program that the minister will speak on, so I'll just mention it to you, the 10,000 houses program. And the Prime Minister, in her travels to Guyana, has determined that there's a beautiful house that she saw not only Guyana, okay, and other options, but I'm dealing with Guyana. We have the Chinese houses, we have the houses at Vespera Gardens, because she wants me to mention the three, and we are preparing very shortly to show you them via social media. That should happen by Monday of this week. The intention next week or leading into the next couple of days is that there's to be a mortgage fear in this country. But outside of that, for those persons who would have received calls over the last 2 to 3 weeks from the National Housing Corporation, you will receive a call again. And the idea is that we'll have a show house at Scott's Gap, which is a Chinese house. We have a show house at Queen's Park, which is still there from AgroFest. And there are 2 show houses at Vespera Garden, and you'll get an opportunity to see them. The aim from that is that for those persons who make $2,000 or less, the opportunity stands that you can gain a mortgage, because houses will come from as low as the cost of 90,000 Barbados dollars. This is truly a dream, and we go further. The Ministry of Housing is looking at the concept of placing PV panels, photovoltaic panels on those houses. What that will do is bring down the cost of your mortgage, allowing you to own a home for at least a minuscule amount of money. So therefore, a 10 kilowatt panel will produce over just about $700 per month in revenue. That $700 will go to your mortgage, and we may ask you to pay a small fee of between $30 to $50 that will go towards covering the maintenance of your home over those years. This is truly a magical reformation of housing in this country, where people who make less than $2,000 or even sometimes less than $1,000 will be able to own a home in this country. This is being done by the government of Barbados.
All right. Just let me add something here, because thank you, GM. The GM mentioned the backlog. I'm not sure if you all fully understand that the backlog of applicants for housing at National Housing, when we came into office, stood at over 25,000 persons applying for houses over the last, 15 years or 10 years. And we employed a team at National Housing to clean up that backlog. Presently, we have done over 18,000 applicants from over 10 years or within the last 5 years. And those persons, we found that at least 5,000 of them or even more need houses. And that's why we have embarked on this cleanup of backlog and the various types of housing, the like Gay Steel housing with the East-West project and the Joe Villa hardwood housing. And as the Prime Minister rightfully said, that's not all. We have other options that we're exploring. I know only recently someone sent a proposal to me yesterday, a PS. I will share with you. It is news to everybody here. Prime Minister, sorry about that. I only received it yesterday. And they're looking at getting housing in this market at under $100,000. So we have options for low-income earnings, earners, persons who are earning less than $2,000 a month net, you can get a mortgage for a house at $90,000. And as the GM rightfully said, next week we'll be engaging, putting plans in place to have a mortgage fair. And also persons to visit the houses. The public relations, I think we had a public relations meeting today, whereby persons will be able to view the houses, not only online, but in person. You'll go to Scotts Gap and look at the house, which is the gauge steel house from the Chinese in partnership with us at National Housing. You'll go to Queen's Park to look at the hardwood house, Joe Villa partnership with National Housing Corporation. And you'll go to Vesper Gardens at Lancaster to look at the houses, and that is persons earning between $2,000 to $5,000, and that is utilizing renewable energy. All of our options will utilize renewable energy so that your mortgage rate would be cutting, I would say, approximately half, right, Prime Minister, than what it was before. If you used to pay $1,500 for a house rent, now we heard the Prime Minister say, take that money and put into a mortgage. One house valued at $172,000, utilizing renewable energy option, and you earning between $2,000 to $4,000. Your mortgage is only $792 a month, and that is as a result of utilizing renewable energy, putting a 10 kilowatt system, and whoever leasing that or giving you the option to own it, and your mortgage rate would be significantly reduced. I just wanted to add that. And that is where we are doing. It is a 10,000 silent revolution. Thanks to this good lady here. It is her brainchild. And you, all of us in St. George, we can own our homes. We are looking for land. Only yesterday, the Prime Minister, we journeyed with the member for St. James North, looking at some land. St. George North, sorry. In St. George, both in the north and in the south. And hopefully, the Prime Minister would give it her blessings. And we can have land for you low-income earners and middle-income earners in St. George as well, because it is going all across Barbados, not only St. George, but I speak for St. George tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Banfield, I'm being told that even before we get to the stage of the rehabilitation center, the QEH has ordered the surgical equipment and artificial hip and knee joints, the prostheses, in various sizes. And the plan is moving now to 10 to 12 joint replacements per month, because there is a backlog that's considerable of about 400 to 500 people waiting for joint replacements. So when I tell you all that, I just feel like Electrolux, clean up, clean up, clean up, believe you me. But little by little, and with the faith of God, we're going to get there, okay? But I hope that we can interest, as I said, the private sector in taking the lead in having a national rehabilitation center or hospital for people who have the need for that kind of rehabilitation. Who's next? There was a lady I saw just now. Was she coming? Yes, sir? Come. Okay.
Before you start, sir, please, we are past the 8 o'clock hour, which means that we are running out of time very quickly, so let's make our point very quick.
Yeah, we still have time, so don't frighten people, because we've only been going for an hour. We start a little late, so we're only going for an hour, so let me talk. Thanks. But keep it tight, because I don't know how many people want to talk, and that includes us up there.
Hey, good night to the audience. Good night to Madam Prime Minister and all the other ministers in the house. My question is multifaceted. My name is Nikolai Peters. A bit anxious after the wait. But my question is multifaceted, but I'll try to be as articulate and concise as possible. My issue stems from transportation. And you'll find as I go on, a lot of the things that I say will be correlated. One, we'll try to put them as points. One, gas prices, the inevitable rise in gas prices, and then the lack of transportation, especially in smaller... Wait, sorry. Especially in smaller villages like Beers Village, where I'm from. This issue, which would have been going on for over a decade, or at least a decade and a half, would have been the paramount reason for me not attending Queen's College until the year 2019. People like my grandmother, and I'm sure other villages or different districts across Barbados will suffer from this same problem, lack of transportation. If you don't have the money to pay for gas already, a lot of us rely on the bus. And if we don't have a reliable system, how do we depend on something like this? I mentioned the inevitable rise in gas. I'm writing an article, and I could easily stay here and be self-serving and mention, yes, I'm a youth advocate, a soon-to-be oriented youth parliamentarian, but I didn't come here for that. I study in Jamaica, banking and finance and other things like that. And I think, again, I'll reiterate, it's multifaceted, but I'll try to keep it short. How do we go forward? I'm trying. Okay, but y'all can hear me properly? Okay. So how do we go forward? I would have met Mr. Khalil Kofdawala during my tenure at Queen's College, and I've seen the work you've done trying to implement the youth so you can get a voice and an ear on the ground. In surrounding myself with ministers in Jamaica, such as Orlando Terrelong, former MP Raymond Price, and many others, I would have seen how they operate as a team and have councillors in different districts or parishes, for lack of better words. Pardon? Local government to aid them, because funny enough, you mentioned in your Summit of the Americas, no order is too small. So I say that to say smaller districts like Bears Village, for example, we need the buses. There's no way during the week that you have to wait till after 7 at night to get a bus. On the weekend, they're non-existent. How do we combat this? Obviously, I understand that y'all are juggling, as you mentioned, and resources are finite. You bought buses, electric buses, you're trying your best. But how do we go forward? How do we implement the youth? The people that are really living these realities, for lack of better words, because at the end of the day, all of you are humans. You've attained certain degrees, but you're humans. So I ask, how do we go forward? Why can't we, or how do we implement youth such as Mr. Kofdawala, people like myself, and I'm sure there are many others across Barbados who could raise these issues in a diplomatic manner and work closely with administration going forward. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. Many hands make light work, and therefore, I'm wondering, can we implement more political assistants such as ourselves who want to be MPs? I plan to take on the mantle after Mr. Dwight Sutherland.
I hear you.
And I would have seen your effort, and I applaud it, because if you're going to criticize, you must still give credit. You must give Jack his jacket, and I don't mean that in the wrong way. Yep. But lastly, how do we go about it? Because there are a lot of people like ourselves, and I'm sure we speak for the many. I didn't come here to be self-serving. I would have postponed my aspiration to live overseas permanently because I want to serve. I came from the back of society, and I've worked hard to get here, and I continue to work hard, because not only do I plan to take over from Mr. Dwight Sutherland, I plan to take over from you. So that way, as a youth going forward, not only will
Power to you, my brother.
And I want to put forth, I'm not just saying this, I've been working assiduously towards this task because I understand, I've heard your cries, I've lived it as a Bajan, a young black boy with tattoos and dreads, and I also want to remove the negative connotation associated with these looks. There is no correlation between appearance and competence. So I want to go forward with letting you know you can bring people like ourselves to work closely with the administration. There's only so much y'all can do, and we have fresh perspectives, and it's us that have to take over the mantle after y'all.
Thank you. Nikolai, let me thank you for coming forward, sir. Let me remind you that one of the things that the government wants to start now, even as we go forward, is the people's assemblies. Because we want to ensure that there are more opportunities for people like yourself and others in the community who want to serve to be able so to do. So that hopefully will create the platform for people across Barbados at all levels, young and older people, to be able to serve. I can only tell you that if you want to serve, the best place to start is among people and helping people. Because at the end of the day, it's not only about what we can do in front of a microphone, but it is how we help people to sleep easier each and every night. And that is where you'll make your biggest difference. With respect to policy, this government, I have tried to lead a government that tells people straight, we don't know everything, we're not omnipotent, we're not omniscient, we don't do everything. I try to have open arms and bring as many people forward as possible. So I'm glad to know that you want to take my job. That means you're going to hug me first, which means you're going to stay close to me.
The last thing I'd like to mention is, I'm leaving hopefully this isn't presumptuous, but I'm leaving the island to go back to school in Jamaica on the 25th of August, and I am not
How
seeing
much longer do you have?
I'm not seeing. Pardon?
How much longer do you have?
In university.
Yeah.
2 more years.
Good thing. Keep going.
I'm not seeing I'm only 20 years old. I'm not seeing my comrade, Mr. Jung, and I'm seeing the youth behind the camera, so this is a step in the right direction. But as I told Mr. Jung, I'd love to meet with you and have a close discussion before I leave the island, if that's possible. As I said, I hope it's not presumptuous, but I have a lot of perspectives I'd like to implement to help the people
There's
across
a lot of time
Barbados.
between now and the 25th of August, especially crop over.
For sure.
So we'll catch a lane.
So I'll be figuring out the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you hopefully for inspiring others too.
My name is Jonathan Moore. My name is Jonathan Moore. First, I want to, before I leave here, I want to meet Sonia Banfield because this is the name that I used to hear on the radio. And I must say, 10 years ago, our orthopedic surgeon was about to charge me $40,000 for replacement on the left knee. So it's whatever help, Your Honor, that you can assist because it's a very painful thing. And I tell you many times before that lady stand up, she have to start her feet first. Or not, she would fall and then she can have a whole displacement. Secondly, I want to congratulate the Permanent Secretary and the MP for St. John because what was said about the active way, how we're going about with the Codrington Trust and getting the land for the people, I can tell you is a reality, and I will give him a clap for that shortly. Good job, Permanent Secretary, good job. Now, 11 years ago, I was at this in this area here, and I was speaking about the problem that they get with the flooding at Low Estate down there by Shafet. I explained to the engineers at that time, once you got water coming down a hill, you cannot leave it unchallenged. You have to reduce the accumulation. You have to reduce the speed because after the speed, you can get force. Now, I explained to them before to put in the tunnel, don't put in a tunnel. If you do geometry, a square would handle more volume than a circle. Now, up to this time, since 11 years ago, that's why I'm glad that you are here. If I had to ask any of them if I've done the walkthrough,
Sorry, I think the Prime Minister St. Lucia is joining us. That's why he asked you to pause, but is he here, Roy? Okay. Prime Minister Pierre? As you know, we just came back from a CARICOM Heads of Government meeting, so we have asked him and welcome him to join us to show how we do some community engagement in Barbados to deepen democracy. Thank you. Prime Minister, we're in the middle of a presentation from Mr. Kalima here, so he is actually giving us a lesson that I think is the kind of lesson that all of us as politicians need to hear from ordinary people and as we interact with our technicians sometimes. Mr. Kalima?
Yeah. Now, if years ago, when I put the proposal to the technocrats, now we have an expanded amount of vehicles. And if you notice, this junction going in very heavily used. Just think about it. Any evening after work, and there's a problem with water, you don't ask what would be the next problem. Now, it was I went through, and I always tell people, water don't change a course. You have to do something for it to change the course. It is no maybe about it. And the next thing, that I want to explain to the engineers is that once you have more building going on in the country, you're going to be covering the coral of the earth, which means that the runoff water from the roof is got to go somewhere. Most people run it to the road. So then after that, it left now for the technocrats to come up with a better solution how to deal with it. Because at the end of the day, everybody's talking about the government. So all I am saying, take a walk not when it's sunny. Take a walk, travel the terrain when the water flowing. Because one of the things that you can get is that people can build, I know about this, people can build and divert water away from them at somebody else. All right? Now, I get to myself. I leave the Polytechnic in 1979 after 3 years. And what I have done, ma'am, you know, sometimes it don't go with how good you is. I got proof. I made all type of contacts. I work in many different areas of people that I will know design, and that's why that I say that I see lawnmowers giving out rewhackers. I haven't seen hammers, power saws, chisel. That used to get me upset because really, what we have a lot of hardware stores in the island, and if you check in here, if you could find 20 young fellas that at the age of 20, I would close off. What we got to do something to enhance these fellas. You can't want youngsters to develop and again there'll be whackers, hair trimmers, a blower. Can't work. It can work because that's something that everybody do. So what we can do, I can tell you what you can do. You can try to get the youngsters, let them see that you're willing to help. A hammer costs a good piece of money. We got a lot of hardware stores that can, if you had to go and say, well, I am the MP for St. George, I want a couple hammers. Now there are 7 basic tools. Ma'am, I can give you the 7 basic tools. I leave the Polytechnic with high grades and with whatever you needed. My name are being around Barbados. And you know what I can tell you? Ma'am, Prime Minister, the Guyanese, I train them, they train me. You understand? And one of the things, I always try to hang my hat high. They have to come to me, and that's why that I'm saying not come to me, but I teach a lot of them. You know why? Don't matter how young these fellas is and come and pushing a pancart. They don't left around Calimore. They used to be Calimore. You know what happened? The next job, they got a hammer, they got a saw. When they meet up with them, I carpenter. Why can't some of our fellas got that same very mindset and be a carpenter? And not only that, they in turn back sent them to push the pancart and the body help, show and tell them, bring a pancart of mortar, then man tell you straight iron at that level.
Yep. You song as though, Mr. Kalimado, that you need to be talking to the 2 MPs here about doing a community-based program in St. George. But I invited this young lady, Minister McConney, to talk because, as you know, we start the Construction Gateway program, and it may well be that you song as though you need to be helping her in that program too. Okay? You can hold there while she tell you what we're doing, because the government has now started a serious program because we anticipate that we're going to have a shortage of tradesmen in this country very shortly.
That is what I was going to touch on. You know why? The fellas frightened for the price of a power saw, right? And not only that, this concept that wants you, be a carpenter, once you pick up the first piece of tool as a square, that's geometrical. You go 180, you go 90 degrees square. Simple, geometrical that I can bring any youngster here, and by morning, don't forget.
Got you. Okay? Don't move, she can talk to you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Mr. Collymore? Mr. Collymore, I thank you very much for raising what you raised, and I want you to know that this government, under the leadership of Mayor Mottley, and I say that because it was her brainchild as well, to bring the construction gateway to Barbados.
That's why I applaud her.
It was a part of the commitment that we made in our manifesto as well when we came into government, that said that we understand that the industry, the construction industry, is moving in a particular direction. And that direction means that it is going to need more resources to be able to help it to grow and to feed and to be able to deal with the issues it will need to deal with as we build more in this country and as we have a construction boom over the next several years.
I don't
Hold
want
a
to
second, because Collymore, you give me a piece here. What we have done is we have committed that over the next year, which would have been starting in April of this year, up until the end of the financial year, we will be training up close to 3,000 new tradesmen in 24 different trades that feed into the construction industry. We started that process. In fact, the first cohort of just about 300 and some people will be graduating in the next couple weeks from the first part of that program, which is the practical part of training. Institutions, the Barbados Community College, the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic, the Barbados Vocational Training Board, and the TVET Council have come together at a level and with a level of collaboration that we have not seen in this country before. And what they are doing, they will ensure three things. One, that the persons who participate get the practical training in some of the trades, whether it's air conditioning, whether it's photovoltaic, whether it's electrician, whether it's carpentry, whether it's masonry, whether it is 24 different trades. I don't have all of them in my head right now, but I probably could list off a good 20 if I wanted to. So one, that they get the practical training. Two, you see those saws that you were talking about and the hammers? Carters and Company Limited just gave us 140 of those kits to contribute to that program. And that program, beyond our partnership with the private sector, and others are contributing as well, that part of that program is to give them the tools so that you not only have the practical training, Mr. Collymore, but when you're done, you also have a toolkit, whether you're a plumber or a carpenter, the toolkit appropriate to your particular trade so you could give yourself a start. And after we have done the practical training and we have provided those tools, by the way, they're going to have to contribute a little bit to it, because we understand that while government will give, we have to make sure that people understand they have to be investing themselves. And so a small amount of the $125 stipend they get every week, very small amount, will go towards them being able to maintain those tools. And then the third part of it is a job attachment. 2 weeks job attachment. Because it is good for them to get the practical training, it is good for them to get the tools, but they also have to get some real world experience. And we know that 2 weeks is not enough. Under people like Mr. Collymore, the Prime Minister is saying. And what is important is we know that 2 weeks is not enough for them to get all, but there's enough opportunity in Barbados that we are praying that those same companies that will bring them on board as part of their job attachment will also want to bring them on as a permanent part of their working team. And for those who don't get brought on board, that they will have the capacity to come together and at least start a little something for themselves. And what we have done in this program, we have left no one out. As long as you applied, you were allowed in, and it was a first come, first serve. Now, what we discovered is that they have a bunch of working persons as well, still working right now, who wanted to be a part of the program. So now we have to reprioritize and make sure that we have the persons who are going to be available at the end of their training to take up work in the construction industry. So, Prime Minister, I don't know if I have answered all, but the bottom line is we have done our best to try to make sure that it ain't just a hammer and a saw, but it's a hammer and a saw and all the other equipment that you're going to be needing for 24 other professions that will feed into the construction industry.
Yes, Mr. Kalama. So you see, that was only in the manifesto in January. Already, the first 300 and something people can graduate in a few weeks' time, and it's still July, beginning of July start. And why? Because we know we're going to have a shortage. I really want to talk to Bajans tonight, and Bajan young people, not just in St. George, but all over. This government has invested money and will continue to invest in your training, in your education. You just heard Nikolai here, you in Jamaica, you come from Birds Village, you're going to Jamaica, you're studying banking and finance. There are others who can go in the Construction Gateway program. There are others, we talked about the services industry with you and the training that we want to do in cybersecurity and other services for people. There is no excuse for persons not being trained. And let me go further. Guyana, as you know, is going through a boom. That's the irony of ironies, right? They're going to have a shortage of welders, a shortage of joiners, a shortage of carpenters. There is, and Prime Minister Pierre is here, and I'm going to pass the mic to him in a little bit to say a few words, but all of us have to make sure that our people are as trained and or educated, because not everybody wants book learning, but people who can do things with their hands. The people from the Water Authority are here will tell you that there's never, you always need a good plumber. You always need a good plumber. We always need welders. With the oil and gas industry in the Caribbean, you're going to need welders. There are so many opportunities. And I hope that people are listening to us. I hope that parents or grandmothers will talk to your children or grandchildren and tell them, give people a reason to pay you. If you don't have a skill, I will only put money in your hand if I feel like. But when you got a skill, you can command money because you have a reason why people need you to be there to work. It is true that even telling jokes is a skill, but the problem is you got to be able to find the right shows for the comedians to get paid. Okay? But if you're really good, you will get paid like Trevor Eastman and others. So you have to study and ask yourself as a young person, what is the reason somebody is going to give me money when the month comes? And I have to go and study, apprentice, or do whatever so that I have a reason beyond being just one of many in the multitudes. Get it?
Yes, ma'am. There's one thing that I wanted to add, and then I would shut off. What I have said, and I was given an opportunity to do a house under this hurricane program, where there was a lot of challenges. And I can tell you, if I could bring up a slide here, and any person could challenge it, it'd be very difficult. But you know what? I only built one house.
I hear you.
So don't care how good you is, ma'am, you can get shut down.
No. There are many, many more. Trust me. And what we are doing, that's why you heard us talk about the mortgage fair, because what the government is doing is unlocking the financing from the banks and the credit unions so that we can get as many houses, because 10,000 houses going to stretch us. And all like you going to be saying, Lord, I can't find the time to go home to my wife or my children because too much work about here. And that's what we're working towards, okay? And that's why when we say go and look at the houses, go and see what house you want, then go straight to the bank or the credit union, and between the panels on the roof and what salary you're earning, you should be able to pay less money than you pay in rent when the month comes.
But ma'am, okay? I would like you to look at, now inside a wooden...
Mr. Kalama, we can talk after. I see I got some other people there. But trust me, there can be opportunities. But I thank you, and I believe that the others from drainage and MTW also heard you about the drainage issues. Only yesterday in rubbing shoulders, we went in where it is Exchange here and dealt with the, and saw the flooding issues there in Exchange just down the road here. And we'll be working on that, and also in Mayfield Tenantry as well. And behind Constant here as well. So believe you me, we are on the ball. That's why I like this rubbing shoulders one day and coming and talking with the people in the parish the next night.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
Good evening, my Prime Minister.
Yes, ma'am.
And Cabinet, and everybody here, good evening. My name is Nadine Procox. I'm from over Mayfield, Flat Rock, a native community that everybody live in unity and good. I move over here in constant tenantry. Nadine Cox Sprout. Yeah. I move over here in constant tenantry. I got the land from 1999. Now, they sent me a letter stating 250 a square feet because it was tenantry land. Some people up there buy it at 10 cents a square feet because it was tenantry land. So they told me 250 a square feet. When I went in to pay them a down payment, $1,000 on the 250, they told me where the mouth had gone from $250 to $5. And you know, I at a loss. I really at a loss. I in a rut. I can't go forward.
That don't sound right, but see the gentleman right next to you, right here, the PS, look at him right here. Turn to your left. Right here. This gentleman right here. So he will tell you who to come and see tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
My Prime Minister.
I'm serious.
I understand.
I'm serious because the price of the land, look, let me explain why. 10 cents a square foot is the plantation tenantry land price.
I read it in
and
the paper.
if it is a non-plantation tenantry, like my constituents in Boarded Hall, it is $2.50 per square foot. But the only $5 a square foot I knew about was a program that the last government had, and it didn't have many lots under it. So that program, to the best of my knowledge, done. So it can only be the 10 cents or the $2.50 a square foot.
So that's why I'm here tonight elaborating on the subject, because I know, as you said, it isn't right. You know, and as a citizen of Barbados and a bred and born St. George person, I don't get the respect as I deserve.
No, you get in to speak to a whole permanent secretary.
Yeah.
So you can get all the respect now.
And
all right?
All right. When I had moved from St. George in the 70s and was living in your constituency, where the Undertaker, Michael, St. Helen, Howard, nice, decent people. Really nice, decent people. That's the honest truth. And I had spoke to you on 2 or 3 occasions already. Of course, I did. Yeah. And as I said, I in a rut up there. I just don't feel happy. You know? I just don't feel happy. And the former minister, I knew him for years because he taught me English at St. Jude's. You know? And
quiet, please. The lady deserves to speak and quiet everybody. And the lady wants to talk.
my Prime Minister. Now, you can imagine, they told me if it is $5 a square feet, the government would pay half and you would pay the other half. It's not so with Nadine. I having a really hard time that I would like to come back to your constituency at any time.
You don't need to. The land up here, let me help explain. The $2.50 a square foot, even if the land was being sold, and let me give the history very quickly, and perhaps Prime Minister Pierre will explain to you what we did in Barbados. Under Tom Adams, he passed the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act. And the simple premise was that people who lived on tenantries in plantations, particularly sugar plantations, had already paid predominantly for that land through blood, sweat, and tears. We asked the plantation owners to subsidize the land, because Tom knew that the land was worth more than 10 cents. But he said basically, these people have paid for it already over and over and over. and therefore you can afford to sell it to them for a token price of 10 cents per square foot. It meant that people would buy 5,000 square foot of land for $500. And what it did was to fuel a housing revolution.
Yeah.
Because people could then take the money that they had or that they needed to borrow and immediately renovate their houses and turn chattel houses into wall. And if you go through almost every country, tenantry in Barbados, you see the amount of houses that have already gone. What Gabby Scott used to say, who in building wall in front, building wall behind? So you see that.
Yeah.
When Owen Arthur came to government in 1994 with all of us, and Reggie, you remember the day. Glenn Clark, bless his soul. In fact, it was Lower Estate tenantry, and it was Allen's land in Bush Hall.
Yeah.
In 1990, the landlords of both of those tenantries wanted to sell the land at $5 a square foot. In that day, that was a hell of a lot of money. We said that it was exploiting the people, and bless Henry Ford. Henry Ford helped us in opposition as opposition leader to take the stance, and we settled the policy. Once Owen became prime minister and we were in cabinet, we introduced then, Dale, you were chairman of National Housing at that time in the Ministry of Housing. We introduced the urban non-plantation tenantry program. And the simple premise was this. The land in town and on non-plantation tenantries not owned by plantations that benefited for centuries, but owned by ordinary people.
Yeah.
People come from St. Joseph and went in the Turning. People come from St. Andrew and went in Jackson. People come from St. John and went in the Ivy. When they went down, they got a welcome Deputy Prime Minister. Come, Sandy, there's a chair here, please. She was representing me at the same function with the Canadians that Prime Minister Pierre was for the Canadian Independence Day.
Yeah.
But I had to already committed to the people of St. George, so you know I had to come here.
Yeah. I will not detain
Let me finish though. I can finish
Okay.
for the benefit of the wider audience.
Yeah.
You can sit if you want. But the bottom line was that we therefore knew that the landowner could not give the person buying, the tenant, the subsidy. So here's what the government said. You, the tenant, pay the first $2.50 per square foot. That's why you get the $2.50 here, Ministry of Housing, with the non-plantation tenantries. And the government pays the difference between $2.50. Originally it was $10, then it was moved to $15. So that for 5,000 square foot, you would pay $12,500, and the government would pay the difference between $12.50 times $5 is $62,500. Now, if that's not winning lotto, if that is not redistributing land, if that is not making sure that people who had no stake in the country can get a piece of the action, then nothing is. So that is why I know that when you go and see whoever Mr. Maynard, P.S. Maynard, tell you to see tomorrow morning, I can't tell you whether Constant is a scheduled plantation for 10 cents or whether it is a non-plantation for $2.50, but I know it in the $5. Thank you very much.
And one more point, my Prime Minister. Now, I read it in the paper some time ago, and I saw my representative, Miss Moore, you know, that she could understand where it was coming from, because, I mean, as a one woman live up there. Yes, I'm a one woman live up there, and I get ostracized, marginalized, and all kinds of things you could abuse. Ostracized, marginalized, and everything that you could think is bad. But I appreciate that you're listening to me tonight. I appreciate you listening to me. Thanks a lot.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening to the Honourable Amor Mottley, our Prime Minister of Barbados, and all other cabinet representatives. I am Olivia Arthur.
Quiet, please. I told you all, I beg you, we need to listen to people in peace, and it's worse for me tonight because of the ear problem that I have in the sinuses. Go ahead.
I am Olivia Arthur, the president of the Constant Neighborhood Watch Committee. Olivia Arthur. And I'm here to ask for your ear for 4 items. One of them being the sewage fee. Here at Constant, there's a fee for sewage that we pay that has been imposed on us really. And I remember when we were having the issues with South Coast, it became a national issue for us all to pay sewage. We think it's unfair for us to be paying this fee. It amounts to more than the homeowner's insurance for these properties. And so we are asking for a meeting, if possible, with you and our representative, the Honourable Toni Moore, to have a further discussion on this.
Okay, what I will do is ask the MP and the Minister of Housing to meet with you first, and if necessary, a representative of the NHC. Because I don't know enough about the matter to be able to commit to you one way or the other. Yeah?
The other thing is the compensation for the residents of the 476 hostel. There are 3 hostels in the neighborhood, and the 476, for the 476 hostels, these persons haven't been compensated as yet for the issues they've been having on their homes. So they're
compensation for the, we're missing both.
So,
the
okay,
GNA
so
missing.
there have been issues that the home residents have been experiencing since we moved into their houses. And these things we've been communicating, we've submitted information and such like to National Housing. And we've had 2 other hostels where those persons have been compensated for their issues like leaking and such
Can
like.
I ask you, this the houses that Clico started to build?
Yes, they are.
That was left unattended for all them years?
Yes, they are.
Oh.
Very much so.
That the
So
last
by the time we
that
moved
the last
in-
government left to the elements for all them years?
So by the time
Mr.
we
Arthur,
moved-
don't hurt your head. Minister Sutherland and P.S. Maynard have a meeting with the Housing Association for me. General Secretary, you said that you've met with them already?
I celebrated my first anniversary with them. That's the last occasion. And National Housing had undertaken, I know the board has been working on it. There have been commitments given to me, to them, and there's just the need to follow through. So I don't know what me meeting with housing should do. I think that there needs to be action.
Yep. P.S. Minister, I want to report at Cabinet next Thursday after the meeting. Thanks.
There are 2 other issues, and that's just the street lights. The development is very dark, and I know that it was mentioned that.
Carry along the poll numbers and get the poll numbers to
Okay,
your
and
MP.
the last item
Who
is the
has it?
garbage.
To who?
We've submitted the poll numbers.
The poll numbers are already in, submitted since October 2020. They were submitted to the Ministry of Transport and Works, and I understand
The
that they
minister
were
is
passed
here
on to
now,
RDC.
so she will follow up on the poll
Those
numbers.
2 that you identified, plus 63 others across this constituency that are still awaiting lighting.
So we'll follow up on those.
The last
item?
one is the garbage cans. I realize that down to Dash Valley, I'm seeing the garbage cans. I'm not seeing the development.
Right now, the SSA has the cans. We're waiting on cans, but because of the logistics problem with the shipping, we're waiting on them to come in.
Thank you,
So I would say, Minister Ford, most of them are out, but we're still waiting on the last batch to come into the country, correct? About 90%, 95%. But there are people, I'm picking up little pockets of people all around the island. We picked up somebody in Sweet Vale yesterday. We picked up people in Venture in St. John. We picked up different people. So, but we do know that there is genuinely an issue in getting the the shipments in. Look, I was with the President of Ghana and Prime Minister Pierre. I think you were there too. When on Tuesday he said he was waiting for over 1,000 containers out of Jamaica, for some as long as 14 months to be able to get the shipping. and the world has a serious shipping crisis. So I think there was a story in the newspaper too about construction materials as well coming under pressure. So it is not business as usual, but we will get them as soon as we can. And I am so proud that Barbadians are treating them with respect. And you see them all around the place. They look clean. And obviously, because they have the RFID chip, if somebody try to carry them away, you can locate where it is.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
PS, make the arrangements for the meeting so we can report to Cabinet next Thursday. But that's what happens when you have housing left dilapidated for a long time, regrettably, and exposed. I want to thank everyone. It's 9 o'clock, but I don't want to stop because we know how to be hospitable, and we cannot have Prime Minister Pierre, you here, without being able to say a few words. You have a lot of Lucians living in Barbados too, and some in St. George, and the ability for the people of St. George to benefit not just from their MPs and the members of Cabinet. There's a Lucian right there in the back they're pointing out right there as well. I'm sure that they and others would love to hear from you and to thank you for joining us tonight, because this is how we live as brothers and sisters, as heads in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Good evening to everyone, MPs. I know you did very well, and also Deputy Prime Minister, good evening, everyone. Let me thank the Prime Minister for allowing me to say a few words to you. Anybody who can win all the seats in 2 elections, and you get an opportunity to see her in action, you must make sure you take this opportunity. So when I was told that there was this meeting tonight, I came basically to hear how it's done, because in the region, we have to work with each other. We have to learn from each other. All of us have our strengths and our weaknesses. But together, this area, this region, this CARICOM region, can be one of the best places in the world if we work together. This is arguably one of the most difficult times to run any country. It's one of the most difficult times to run any country. And it's not, and these problems are not problems for Barbados or for St. Lucia or for Jamaica or for Guyana. They are worldwide and global problems. And the issue is, we have nothing to do with it. We have never fired one shot in Ukraine. We have no issues with anybody, but they do their thing in their countries, and we pay for it. We pay for it in ways that, as I was saying, we pay for it in ways that are unimaginable. So I want to tell you the issues that you have, the cost of living, the price of fuel, the ability to get goods from outside because of supply chain issues, have nothing to do with us. Absolutely nothing to do with us. All of them. The increases of goods in the stores, inflation, the prices of goods go up every day. So much so, we have to reduce the tax that we get on fuel to ensure that the price of goods remain at a certain level. Has nothing to do with us. So we need to be patient, and we need to do what we can do. And what we can do is growing our little food, our little crops at our home, our kitchen gardens, saving. Your Prime Minister always speaks about 6-week crops. We need to try to feed ourselves. Little things we can do till we pass through these problems. So I want to tell you that when I hear what you all are doing in Barbados, I drive and I see so many houses going up, etc. Really, I think that you should be proud of what's happening in Barbados. You should be proud of it. But we are doing many things together as CARICOM. The country of Guyana is getting oil, or Guyana has oil, but Guyana also has agriculture. And we have to feed ourselves. And together as CARICOM, we are working on a food project where we try to reduce our food imports by 25% by the year 2025 so we can feed ourselves. So I want you to wait for that. I want you to encourage it, and I want you to work together with that. Also, we are looking to see how we can get fuel cheaper. And to get fuel cheaper, we have to deal with the issue of Venezuela. And that's the issue that we are working on. But we are trying. We know the problems. We understand the problems. But as leaders and as people who always try to put the people first, we are doing whatever we can to help solve this problem. So be patient. It's not our fault. We have nothing to do with it, but we're trying. Things are tough. All of us have little fiscal space, but we have to be strong. We have to work together in the region, and we have to learn from each other. So good night, everyone, and do have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Philip. Prime Minister Pierre. As you see, we're not walking alone. Doesn't make it necessarily easier, but as I said, we have to dig deep and know that our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents who went before us faced difficulties too, and we can rise to the challenge too. Sometimes you'll just have to bounce. Sometimes you got to cut and contrive. Sometimes you can walk straight. Sometimes you can have a back pull. But we need to be able to use the land, every square inch of land, horizontally, and if possible, vertically too. Okay? I believe there's one more person you said, Roy, that we wanted to take before we finish. Yes, ma'am.
Good night, Prime Minister Mottley, Prime Minister Pierre, and the other ministers and Deputy Prime Minister. My name is Udally Wickham Ashby. And tonight, I am pleased to be here and share some thoughts I have with you to enlist your support so that citizens with disabilities are always included. My brother spoke about transportation. It's vital to the survival and the movement of any people in any country. And that's even more pivotal for persons with mobility challenges. The caller ride service that we have in Barbados is an excellent one. I personally use it. And I have to compliment the transport board, the drivers who go beyond their duty to facilitate us as people with disabilities. What I would want to suggest, Prime Minister, is that we have wheelchair accessible buses for this service, because my brothers and sisters who use wheelchairs or other mobility aids are unable to access this service. If they're going to use it, they must have additional support to get in and off the buses. So I would want to encourage you to allocate some funding to have some wheelchair accessible buses in the service. That's one. Secondly, we're talking about housing all night. And people with disabilities also want to be homeowners. Many of them are receiving Social Security from the Welfare Department or the National Insurance Scheme. And this is beyond the $2,000 minimum that you're speaking of to become a homeowner. So as we look at the housing projects that are being constructed, I would also want to recommend Prime Minister and Minister of Housing that a specific percentage be allocated for persons with disabilities, and that they can also be facilitated in having some type of financial support to own their property as well. It is doable, and I would want to encourage your government to help us to own property as well. Some of us experience difficulty going to financial institutions to borrow money because we don't have the collateral. And this is an area that we need to explore some more in how can we facilitate persons with disabilities owning their own property. As well as rentals, because everybody will not be able to own and everybody may not want to own. Again, how do we facilitate the renting of properties? That's the second point, Prime Minister. The third point is health. And I was saying to some colleagues of mine, I would love to tell the Prime Minister of Barbados and the Minister of Health to take the same approach to the National Beautification Project, where you're employing hundreds of persons to beautify this country so that our streets are clean. We have more greenery. We're building an environment that is really cool, nice, and very sociable. And I would like to see that approach to our health sector, where more doctors, nurses, rehabilitation therapists, and other skilled people are employed to uplift and provide the type of healthcare system we once knew. Many individuals with disabilities need rehabilitative services. Unfortunately, far too many are becoming their limbs are becoming even more contracted because they're not getting the level of physiotherapy or occupational therapy that they need to really remain mobile and independent enough to help themselves. So this is an area that I would love to see developed, that more persons with disabilities, particularly those who are quadriplegic and require additional services. Our cost of living is extremely expensive. The IMF said it was up by 20%. And think of the impact that the families who have members with disabilities are experiencing with this high cost of living. So that's health. The other area, I talked about transport, housing, health, and the other area is employment. Employment. Many of our young people with disabilities are caught in a catch-22 situation where they want to work, but because they're receiving social benefits, they don't want to release that for employment that may be temporarily and then have to try to reapply for the social benefits. And I'm thinking, Prime Minister, that an area can be explored where there's the same way you have the probation period for new employees, allow a probationary period where the individual can retain the social benefits while they're receiving the salary until there's the security, they know for sure that they will be employed full-time, and then they can drop the social benefit that they were receiving. It's important not only for the good of the country, because we want to contribute to the national insurance scheme, but it's also good for the mental and social well-being of the individuals. Prime Minister, I know you're a woman that listens, and I know you're a woman of action, and I'm thanking you for the action you will take on these areas.
Thank you, ma'am, and I stand to tell you that a number of the things that you raised are being actively engaged, not all of them, but I really thank you for the articulate way in which You've indicated the needs for persons who are facing challenges. The transport issues, the call and ride service. Santia is here and she has heard. I know that in some instances, the new buses, we're looking to see with the wheelchair accommodation, but it's the call and ride service you're talking about, correct? So that I'll ask you to link with them and to see what else we can do in the expansion of that. When we started that program was when last we were in government. Trevor Prescott, I think, was one of the key people responsible for getting that program started. I'm happy to hear about the quality of service from the drivers, and I think those here from the Transport Board, and especially the General Secretary of the Workers' Union, would be happy to hear that her workers are providing the service that brings joy to your heart. She says she knows, she didn't need to hear it. With respect to the home ownership, Dwight is reminding me that tomorrow they're meeting. Cabinet appointed the commission to advise us on the terms and conditions and the improvement of the well-being of persons who are differently able. That is being chaired, as you know, by Edmund Hinkson. And in fact, I'm being told by the Minister of Housing that he is meeting with the Ministry of Housing tomorrow, along with members of his commission. Is transport or housing is meeting tomorrow? Oh, it's a multi-sectoral meeting with transport and housing. So they're very much on to their work, and we hope to have a new deal in place for you. But let me say that we already started. And one of the first things we did in the last term, and it is perhaps not being used sufficiently enough, is that we made it possible we've passed the law to give persons with different, who are differently able or challenged, a competitive advantage for procurement of certain things in government. So if, for example, persons can do the caning of chairs or whatever, or do different things that they can do, government is committing to make sure that we can buy from them to ensure that there's a sustained income for you, for those of you who need to have it. With respect to the housing, I think that NHC has already committed to a 10% quota, excuse me, of all the new housing that they have to do to be reserved for people who have challenges. On your point about the emphasis on healthcare, just as you do with the National Beautification Project, that is why we spoke earlier about the 40 persons who have been hired as community nurses, which have nothing at all to do with the polyclinics, but relate to the QEH. I think last time I checked, it was 36. There's supposed to be 40. Similarly, you heard me say tonight that I want the Ministry of Health to buy the machines to do the testing, because I believe that diabetes is at epidemic proportions in this country. We already know that we have one of the highest amputee ratios in the world, if not the highest, and therefore we want to work with Bajans to truly take control of their health and well-being. And to that extent, I hope that we can continue to work to be able to satisfy persons like yourself and others that without health, we have nothing. And the pandemic taught us that. I want to know if Minister Humphrey, who is here, would wish to just say a few words to add on to what I've said and what you've said, to be able, because I know that he feels very passionately about working with you guys. Kurt.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Good night to everyone. And good night, Yudley. I know her very well. One of my students. Prime Minister, you mentioned most of the things we're doing. I think you said that I'm passionate about it, but you're equally passionate, or perhaps even more so. We've done a number of things. The committee that the PM spoke of is put in place to improve the lives of persons with disabilities. You would have heard us mention that we are doing 1,000 families who are most vulnerable in Barbados. That would include some persons with disabilities. But then we added 200 families, specifically only for persons with disabilities. So in addition to the 1,000 most vulnerable, there's an additional 200 families, which works out to be about 200 by, we're assuming a family has, could be say 8 persons, that could be 1,600 people who will then have access to better housing, better health care.
But that's just the first round, Skipper.
And that's just the first round.
And for those who want to create mischief, I get involved now. Because you take one step at a time. Our ancestors talked to us about one blows kill old cow. And the first 1,000, then the second 1,000, then the third 1,000, then the fourth 1,000. But it's got to start where the heat is hottest.
Yep.
And the heat is hottest for those people who have limited or no choices at all.
Absolutely. So our intention is to get to every person with disabilities. The other thing is that in Barbados, if there's a space where we can improve, it is certainly in this space. We've then determined that we want to know where every single person in Barbados who has a disability, we want to know where they live. We want to know the nature of that disability and what the government can do to better assist that person. So we're compiling that list, and when I report next time, it will be these are the things that we have done to help those persons on this list, one by one by one. The Council for the Disabled will also tell you that we have frequent meetings now to be able to go through the challenges that they have and to make sure we respond to them. In addition to the buses from Transport Board, the Prime Minister, we have just bought 2 vehicles. And we're retrofitting those vehicles to be able to be disabled friendly at the National Disabilities Unit, to then be able to assist persons with disabilities as well. So there are a number of things that are happening. I think one of the bigger things will be that by the end of this year, there's currently no legislation in place, as you know, Yudli. By the end of this year, there's going to be legislation that addresses all of the issues for persons with disabilities. We committed to it. It is going to be before the Parliament. We hope to have the draft by September and have it before the Parliament by November, so that we will have legislation that actually protects persons in Barbados, because there's no real protection now. And in relation to employment, lastly, the big issue is that we have to be able to train up persons. I met a young man yesterday when I was doing my clinic, for example, who is hearing impaired. And the issue he raised is exactly the issue he raised with me, that if he got a job for a week or 2 weeks, his pension, his benefits stop. And I do take the point that we should extend the benefits even as persons work, and that is probably something that we could do in the short term. So I take the point, but there are a number of things that are happening, and we will report to the country very soon on all of those things. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Before we wrap up, it's getting late, but I could not leave St. George without asking both the Member of Parliament for St. George North and, if necessary, Mr. Chapman, to address the vexatious issue of Lower Estate. These meetings are not just to sound pretty, these meetings are to be real and to allow us to deal with the issues and challenges that people face day to day. So while I go to the bathroom, please address it. Thank you.
Prime Minister has left, but I really, and gave the mic to me, but I really would like Mr. Chapman to speak to this issue. And the reason for this is this issue has been going on for years and years and years. And since I have come into the position of representation for about 17 months now, this has been one of the most vexing issues in the constituency for me. And I don't live in any of the affected areas. I experienced my own frustration as the MP for the area, receiving reports that indicate that there is no progress being made. And I think that this is the opportunity for anyone who wishes to engage the health officials who might be in a better position to indicate where we are on the issue, to tell the committee that meets what is going on with the environmental study that is supposed to be done, the monitors that are supposed to be investigating, and what further action is being taken on it. I think that, Mr. Chapman, you are in a better position to update and take any questions that come on this matter than I would be. So over to you, sir.
Good evening, Prime Minister, heads of government, ladies and gentlemen. As the Minister has said, this has been a, sorry. As the MP has said, this has been a long and vexing problem. So let me just tell you where we were. We were in a position where the owner of the quarry used the quarry for recycling purposes. The quarry was used in a manner that was not efficacious, and because of that, there was a number of fires in the quarry. What we did was to do an evaluation, and this was a multi-ministry evaluation. And with the then Minister Bostic, would have put together a committee which included the residents of the area as well as other ministry officials to address the problem. Now, during that process, the decision was made that we needed to have some air quality assessment done to see how this burning was affecting the residents in the area. Now, that took a bit of time because we had to approach PAHO, Pan American Health Organization, to get that air quality assessment, to assist with that air quality assessment. That took some time because of COVID, and the air quality, there wasn't any flying at that point in time. Eventually, we got a company out of Trinidad, Caribbean Air Quality Management Services, to do the air quality assessment. There were 4 sites set up for the air quality. Stations were sampling stations. So what we had to do was to put out sampling stations to take bits of the air over a period of time to determine if there was a problem in the community. Those sampling stations were set up in 4 places. One in the dump itself, where the actual burning was taking place. One in Salters, one in Ruins, and the other one in the area just behind the dump. I can't remember the exact area. It's over by Alan Harvey, where that's called. Nevertheless, I can't remember the exact area, but there were 4 areas. The report came back, and the report said that according to World Health Organization standards, that the emissions from the dump did not exceed what World Health Organization would be considered as hazardous. Those results were also taken to PAHO for review, and they were shared with the residents of the community. The next step was the actual remediation process. So what we had done, we submitted a paper to Cabinet which recommended the methodology for the remediation. But also what the residents were adamant about, and rightly so, is that once we start to do the remediation, we expected that the removal of the topsoil and other parts of the dump will cause flare-ups. And if that is going to happen, then we need to be able to monitor that site as the remediation process went on. Now, for us to do that, you have to get our own air sampling equipment. So the Ministry of Health went ahead and we paid for the air sampling equipment, and we are presently waiting for that equipment to come to us so we can start. Now let me be clear, this air sampling equipment is not off-the-shelf air sampling equipment. It is something that has to be tailor-made. So it takes time for that to be done, and that is why we are in that waiting period right now, because we've already paid for the equipment, and I mean to no small cost to the government. So that air sampling equipment, we are presently waiting for that air sampling equipment to arrive in Barbados. Once that air sampling equipment gets here, we anticipate it should get here in about 2 months' time. Once that air sampling equipment gets here, the equipment is equipped with all the latest technology, remote sensing and so on, so that when we put it out, we don't have to go back and look at it from time to time, that we can sit in our office and it will communicate directly to us and let us know what is going on in the dump and the surrounding areas. Now, the fire service would have also done a number of thermal imaging tests on the site. And what we found on the site is that over a period of time, the site deteriorated because of the long wait to get each of those steps completed. So we had to change then what has to be done in terms of the remediation process. So in the past, what we had planned on doing is to excavate around the corners of the site, separating it from the rock face, refilling that with clay, and then covering the site properly to completely smother it to stop the burning. Yes, please.
I am only interrupting because St. George North people are not slow, but we like things break down. It sounds a bit technical, and I think that people would want to know where we are, what's going on, when the issue can get fixed. I have had to be updating on monitors. The same thing you're saying since our last meeting on the 13th of May. And I think that we would want to be in a position to have people here. The same people that might not talk here, but that can be coming to me, I want you to be able to tell them what's happening, when it can get fixed.
Okay, let me just say this. The actual fixing of the problem, I call it remediation, but the actual fixing of the problem, if we were to start now, will take us approximately 3 to 4 months to finish. That is because all the material is on the site. The machinery is there. We've had site visits with the Sanitation Service Authority, persons who work with outing fires, and Leonidine, who's also a member of the Sanitation Service Authority, and the fire service. So everything is in place to fix the problem. The only issue that we've had in terms of fixing the problem is that residents would have said where they need to be able to monitor the emissions from the site when the remediation start. Because once you start to pull it away, you can get flare-ups. And you want to know that anything that is flaring up.
Be more direct, Mr. Chapman. I think you're talking, as General Secretary said, in pretty language. In order to fix the problem, it can get worse before it get better?
Yes.
Thank you. Tell the people so.
Okay. So the problem can get worse before it get better.
Because once you to
Right.
try and fix the problem, it means disturbing the earth.
Exactly.
And once you disturb the earth, you can get some smells for a few days while you're trying to fix the problem.
Correct.
How long will that flare up be?
No, because we're gonna
nothing. How long the flare up can be? A week, 2 weeks, a month?
Once we start,
2 months?
at least 3 months, Prime Minister, to fix the problem. 3 months, because it's a very big problem.
Yeah, but will the flare up? Give me a chance, please. I'm breaking it down. Will the flare up be continuous for 3 months, or will it be up and down depending on the atmosphere?
It's going to fluctuate. It can be up and down. Because as you take away, what the plan is, you take away a little bit and you cover it. You take away a little bit more and you cover it. It's in phases.
Have you had a town hall or a meeting at all with the residents to update them on this last phase?
No, Prime Minister.
Why not?
Because we were waiting to hear from the air quality people first. I didn't want to come back to them and tell them the same old story
And you have
again.
it now?
Yes.
And therefore, why not?
Well, Prime Minister, it was only the last couple of weeks.
That's why I love you too, but why not?
As I said, it was only the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but last couple of weeks, I want a sense of urgency with it. And that's what I'm saying. These people have endured too much. We have committed to working with them to find it. And we need to make sure that nobody is inappropriately mining up. There's one meeting. I know it's getting late and we're finishing. Please. They have been waiting too long. COVID made it more difficult for us to resolve, but we now have the information and we need to go forward with calm assurance that we're going to fix it. When you have a cold and you take Buckley's, it tastes bad, but it does what? So, Mr. Chapman, I hope this is a Buckley's solution to Lower State. Okay?
Prime Minister,
can you please meet with the MP and the residents and associated and related people to make sure that you can go in to the finer detail that this audience may not necessarily fully want or appreciate. But you are at a stage now where you've had it in your hand for a few weeks. Treat it as a matter of urgency now for me, please.
Prime Minister.
And I know that nobody raised it in here tonight, But I raised it because I want us, as Owen would say, to face it and fix it.
Correct. So I will meet with the residents and I will meet with the MP for the area, and we will have further discussions. But needless to say, we are far more advanced towards getting the problem fixed than we were before.
People who are suffering, there's no consolation.
I know, Prime
but
Minister.
I thank you for what I always ask for, which is context. Okay? But we are going to work hard to get it done and to make sure that we can get there. But it will get worse before it gets better in order to fix it. And that's what we need to let the people know. And we need to hold all the people who are there to those standards. It is at this stage now, I want to thank you, Mr. Chapman, and all the other public officials. It does not escape me that you are here as part and parcel of your civic duty as public officials, and we want to thank you for that. I also want to thank my other colleagues, the members of parliament and ministers and parliamentary secretaries who understand that this is democracy in action and that this is how we will only get better, by listening to people in an environment where people can come and speak freely. This is the third one, as Roy has said. We've done St. Joseph, we've done St. John, we've done now St. George. St. George really should have been done last week, but regrettably once I had COVID, that threw off the timetable. So it does mean that St. Philip is going to be probably week after next. I'm not sure so late because I don't want it getting into crop over and then people want fat and don't talk. So I want to make sure that St. Philip has a good day. I'm setting dates here. I can look at it with you. I don't want a conflict with crop over. But I really want to thank all of you. I want to thank the media. I want to thank the technical people. And I want to thank the people from my office. You know, I hear people talk a lot of time, including today, about who we hire and what we hire. We don't hire people to sit down and twiddle the thumbs. We hire people to make sure that events like this and engagement with people, and Mr. Morris, as you know, is the Director of Citizen Engagement and Media Relations. And I thank him for ensuring, along with Ms. Odell, who is in charge of protocol things for me in my office, that these events can get on and we can get forward with them along with Mr. Yearwood. Thank you very much. Get home safely and have a good night.